What are you most proud of from the ministry?
Well, I'm proud of how the staff has really embraced the work, and I'm proud of how we have been able to manage several projects. If we're talking about youth, how we've been able to reach out to youth more in more innovative ways, and the on the corner reasonings, having 8 new programs through NYS, and so whereas you've moved your reach even in virtual spaces from 46,000, you're now up to 117,000. So you can actually track the movements, and I'm proud of that, and I'm proud of how the staff has been able to really move gung-ho and really impact in the lives. And I'm also proud because of it, we've been able to get more money from finance to be able to do some of those projects. In culture, the museums that we've built 4 new museums. And if I was to say one of the things, there are several, but one is how we have built out the National Gallery and how we have new generations of young people coming in that are making the gallery their home. So you have the Emily Pattersons who are there, and you have world-renowned international young artists who see the National Gallery, and we've been doing exhibitions with them. I'm also proud that we'll be taking over the Simon Bolivar building and the opening of that. And then in terms of children, there's several interventions that we've done, and proud at how the UN saw the strides that we've made. We're not there yet, but certainly in keeping, and we've fixed a number of things, it's separating children from adults, having an interministerial approach, and whether or not you get the criticisms, what is very, very clear is that in the minds of Jamaicans, that children are now a hot topic, and people want to see the situation change.
How do you respond to those criticisms regarding how you handle the children in your portfolio, and general criticisms of your ministry?
Well, first thing, I listen to all criticism. I read the newspapers, I listen to the radio, I read the blogs, because I think it's important to get a wide-ranging view of how people see what you're doing and how people see you, so that if there are general constructive issues that we can change, then I think it's important as a minister or as an MP that I listen to people. It's a part of my job, and I'm not afraid of criticism. I think the hypocrisy in the criticism is when you have someone that says, well, I am responsible for the older man molesting a younger woman, and then that person remains quiet. I oftentimes believe that Jamaicans run with the soundbite rather than doing the analysis. So they would not have been aware that we're the ones who have put and revved up our reporting structures so that persons can report anonymously. That's why we now have the increased reports. That's why we now have 220 reports on average a week of children who are being abused. People would not be aware that we've returned 9 out of every 10 missing children in Jamaica because of the renewed approaches that we've had. People would not have been aware, perhaps, that we've separated all children from adult correctional facilities. And I could go on and on and on. What we have is a problem that was not created when I became minister. This is a problem that has taken place over years. We have a culture, whether we want to believe it or not, there is a culture in some parishes of incest, and people keep quiet about it. The legislation is there. We've strengthened the Sexual Offences Act. There are laws there for sexual grooming, and you can be prosecuted for sexually grooming a child. But you have to understand that people as well need to take responsibility for when they have children. Having a child doesn't mean that you just have them and leave them. It requires significant supervision for a child. It requires significant responsibility. And it requires a mother or a father having the courage to report whether or not a family member has molested their child. Neglect is also a serious part of our culture. Neglect is actually our #1 form of abuse in this country. And we have to find mechanisms to deal with it. We have the Ministry of Education, through the Parenting Commission, has been having community intervention. We do community intervention through the OCR and the CDA. The Ministry of National Security through the Unite for Change program. The Ministry of Justice has rescued over 20 young people and children in terms of trafficking in persons. But why arrests can't be made is because once you make the arrest, why persons can't be convicted, they're charged, is because you can't get the statements from the persons, because after the process starts to go through, people get very afraid of the justice system or the courts. And so one of the other pieces of legislation that we've been able to change and to put in place is children can give evidence via video conferencing, so that you don't have that trauma of a child facing their accuser. So there are several different things that we've been able to do, but every time you get a child who is molested or a child who is killed, and in the last 2 ones, the most egregious ones, both with young girls were pregnant. And then the community says, well, we knew about it. So you have to be very aware of which ministry is also responsible for doing what. The police have to play their role, we play our role in terms of oversight and rescuing children. The Ministry of Justice plays a role, the Ministry of Health, Education. So it really is a collaborative approach that we have. But people will always criticize Corve. I don't think I'm naive enough to believe that everybody is going to like the work that you're doing. And it's a very emotive issue. And people see the headline and don't do the back research. What I'd say to people is go to our websites, call us. I notice that people volunteer. I read the comments that come in, and I also answer some of them interactively and in real time, which is one of the things that I enjoy about social media. You don't have to wait on a set time for the news to come on. The news is in real time all the time.
In your time as minister, have you made a decision that led you to say, I could have done that different?
Yeah, I have. I think you know me well enough to know that I don't run away from the truth. There are things that I would have said differently. There are things I remember, especially where children are concerned, and I've learned from that. The media, the traditional media, tends to sensationalize things. And even when you say to them, look, please treat with this in a very sensitive manner. I've learned not to say, if I'm going to have to say treat with this in a sensitive manner, I'm not going to say it. Because I'm not in the editing room to look at what the editor is doing or the head of the newsroom. It might be their lead to the story, to hook people in and then they don't say it, but that alone is wrong. So I've learned to deal with the media differently. Certainly in terms of management, it's the understanding of even how to bring resources to the ministry, when to launch programs, when to say things, when not to say them. So the growth, I think, has also been there. I came in at a very, very interesting time when, I don't know if you remember, when we had maybe 6 months to plan and put Jamaica 50 in place. So that baptism was a very, very good baptism, because it led to not only running up the learning curve very, very quickly of understanding a ministry and understanding the politics behind even being the minister at a time coming in when you have a very strident opposition who was hell-bent on making people aware that they were the final arbiter and the architect of certain things in the program. So it was being able to balance those things, and I think I'm very comfortable in my skin, and it's about doing the work. And I think what I'm very clear about, I don't want people to stumble upon who I am. I don't want people to buck up or feel that they have unearthed something in the ministry. So I'll tell you first. I'll tell you that we have a backlog of 7,000 cases that we need to investigate, plus cases that are coming in, but that we've cleared 4,000 of them last year, and that we keep getting more and more cases of child abuse. I'll tell you that, here's what we're doing. We're putting more investigators in place. We had to increase it by 6 last year. We have to increase it by another 6 this year. So now we have in excess of 20 investigators whose only responsibility is to investigate child abuse. We have to get to a point where we utilize our resources to empower children rather than investigate how they're being hurt. So along the lines, it's also being able to creatively utilize resources. And we've learned a lot. And I say we because it's a collective responsibility also in the ministry. I lead it policy-wise, but it's also a collective responsibility.
Is there a point when religion can wield too much influence on public policy?
I think so. And I think if you can look at other countries that are Islamic states, and it certainly, or countries that are more Christian, or countries that are more Jewish, and you can see how those influences influence their public policy and certainly their government. Is there a time when it becomes too influential? I would have to say that I'm thankful for living in a democracy because at least you can have consultation. But where it becomes influential is when you have a country that is predominantly one way, and persons' belief systems and philosophies are tied to the religion that they support. So in the consultations, you're going to get that feedback. But I think ultimately where I always come out is, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. And in balancing how I look at policy, while not putting my personal purview in it, there's always consultation and wide-ranging consultation. If there is something that comes up that I feel can be better delineated to persons with data to show them what the data looks like, then I will present that. But ultimately, I think in Jamaica sometimes the religion trumps other data because people get very emotive and very emotional about it and about their religion. And you can't necessarily take that from them. It's their belief system, it's years, it's traditions of how they feel and what they've practiced and what has worked for them. So we just have to balance it as public officials.